First one, I wasn't here for any accounting silvers, so I'm doing it my way. I brought a cadre who has been here before with Benito and Sergeant Cardenas, and I have my XO in right hand, Lieutenant Dave Gruber. I'm going to cover a few topics. I'm going to try to stick to the 10 minutes as best I can. Where are we now? We're about 2 months into my tenure, and Lieutenant Gruber, we've made some manpower reallocations, created a street crimes unit, and done some other changes that I think have had a positive effect so far on crime. I'm going to talk about the crime trends, and then the community partnerships or cooperation and involvement. Crime trends. The 6-month UCR, Uniform Crime Reporting Stats, just came out for January through June. We have a couple areas that are up a bit, and we have one that's down significantly, but overall we're up 5%, 5.5% for the year for the 6 months. I'm hoping to beat that down in the next 6 months, which will be my first 6 months here. The ones that are up, robberies are up a bit, and stolen vehicles are up a bit this year. Particularly Dodge products. There's a significant spike in stolen Dodges if anybody owns a Dodge.
You can talk more into the microphone, I'm sorry.
Burglaries are down significantly this year, by nearly 100, I think by 80 or so this year to date, which is excellent. The robberies were not entirely unexpected. The SMART grant ended, and a lot of the funding and manpower and resources along with that have ended. So we're working on the problem proactively. We've got Benito going on the Hispanic radio stations trying to educate, and we're doing some other things to get the street robberies back down. The big three have been the same since I was here 20 years ago: prostitution, drugs, and robberies. I've added a fourth. We've noticed a spike in bike thefts, and I'll address that, what we're doing. Here's the crime trends. While crime's up a bit for the 6 months comparing to the pre-merger dates, that black bar is still going the right direction. You can see it's still down from the last year that we were a city police department, and it's been pretty much going the right direction the entire time. There you see the burglaries went from 285 this time last year to 212. I was off by a few, but next slide. Vehicle thefts, you'll see where the spike is. At this time last year we had 62, and this year we're at 103. Like I said, a lot of those are Dodge products, and then there are those Tao scooters. There's been a lot of scooters stolen, and those count as an auto. Robberies, you'll see this, the spike, it's been trending down, and without the SMART grant, it's gone up a little bit by about 30 or so. This is our, like I said, I created the street team when I got here, in addition to reallocating and reassigning some of our CP guys job duties. They're out there proactively hitting the streets, doing old-fashioned police work. That is a tremendous amount of activity in the last 4 weeks. I challenge you to find any other unit or district in the agency that's done anything close to that. That's all self-initiated activity on the part of 10 guys. They're doing a tremendous job under Sergeant Cardenas. Initially I had them all working evenings. Now I've got the CPs working a day afternoon overlap and the street team working evenings till late at night, and their schedule does vary. But they're doing a great job out there. The next slide, you'll see I've compared, we're in the South region. Our major's in charge of District 4, 6, 7, and 14, which is us. That's unincorporated Delray, Boynton, Lake Worth, and Boca, and then us. If you look at the self-initiated activities, you can see that we are clearly working. That's tremendous. It's not exactly apples to apples in every case. Each of those districts is different geographically, demographically. Delray's a significant amount of elderly. Boynton is our closest sister district in the number of deputies and the calls for service and whatnot, but you can see our self-initiated activity is top-notch. District 6, Boynton is 60 square miles, and we're roughly 6, which is a factor 2. And all of those probably have double to triple our population. So our guys are working, they're out there proactively doing police work. Prostitution is a common complaint. We all see it. We are combating it. If you look at the number of arrests, again, I challenge you to find another district that combats prostitution anywhere near that category. 129 arrests from January to June. The problem with that prostitution is if a lot of these girls had better options, they wouldn't. The time served isn't that much. We're trying to do the education. We're bringing back, I'm working with the state attorney's office to bring back the mapping program, which we'll hopefully be able to reinstitute, where once they have been arrested, even if they take the probation, if they're back out in any of our areas like Dixie Federal or the main thoroughfares where they do this activity, they can be, and they're not conducting legitimate business, they can be violated right on the spot, and they agree to this in their probation plea, and they can serve anywhere from 30 to 90 days for violating it. So that'll have a better effect. It worked in the past, and we're gonna bring it back. Ironically, Captain Silva's working in the misdemeanor division, and he's prosecuting mostly DUIs, suspended licenses, and prostitution. So he may be our prosecutor, and he'll be very familiar. So there's our drug arrests from June to August this year. All those little lollipops are drug arrests. That's a lot of activity, and you can see where most of it's occurring. A lot of it's off the Dixie corridor and off the main drags. 6 search warrants, 139 arrests. We've identified the street crime team guys and the CPs are not just running around willy-nilly. We're identifying those hot spots. They come in and they're trying to clean up those areas. Robberies. I wasn't here in January, and typically the weather's cooler and whatnot, the holidays ended, but for whatever reason this January we had a lot of robberies. Then we had another spike in April. You see it's kind of settling down, but you know, any robbery is too many, so we are actively trying to reduce those numbers. We had a great case just about 10 days ago. A K9 guy found a suspect vehicle after they had pistol whipped the victims, and we later found out they had done other robberies. Stopped them just south of the city, leaving the city into Lantana, and one of the suspects literally still had blood on his shoes from the victim. So we got them off the street. We've made 3 robbery arrests just in the last 10 days. And the good thing with robbery arrests, unlike prostitution, they do time. Here's bike thefts. To date, we've had, by our data, 144 bikes stolen. Lake Worth's a very pedestrian and bicycle-friendly city. Consequently, we have a lot of people biking and a lot of thefts. A lot of them are cutting the locks, but we've also had 77 that were just left unlocked. We've made some arrests. We have done the bait bike operations where we put a bicycle out, chained to a bike rack with the cheapest lock in America, and the other guys come and steal it, and we arrest them. We were looking just the other day for a person of interest in a serious crime, and we looked for 3 weeks and didn't find him, and we caught him stealing a bike. So bike theft is an issue. Another issue is in those UCR stats, there's the Part 1 violent crimes, and then there's the other index crimes, of which theft is one. Whether you steal a candy bar or a Rolls Royce, it's still a theft. And if we can knock that number down, you know, when you determine crime rate, they're adding all those numbers together and dividing by our residents when they figure out the crime rates. And this is a number we can definitely proactively knock down. The city manager and Commissioner Maxwell and I, we've been meeting, and we've got some ideas in the works to proactively start to address this issue. How am I doing on time? Huh? Oh boy. Board and Secure, we are working actively with the city code enforcement. We work very well with them. We have a list of properties that are abandoned that need boarding up. We routinely use our community police to inspect them. This house here was part of the program. The owner started to comply. The boards got taken off, and we actually had a heroin overdose with a death in there. So the abandoned properties are a serious issue. It's part of the broken windows, and it does lead to other crime. Keep going. Community partnerships, we've been doing a lot in the last couple months. Make the Call, y'all. We did the crime walk where many of you were there. Captain Silva and I were there. We brought the horses. We had about 50 people. That was very active in the Sector 1 area. Tropical Ridges neighborhood cleanup went very well. We even made an arrest and found some stolen property. We sent our CPs to that. We just met the other day, our leadership and some of our city representatives and the city manager met with some of the African American clergy members, and that was a very positive. I came away from that very happy the way that went. And we're already scheduling something else. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Sure. Commissioner Boyd?
Thank you and welcome again.
Thank you.
I appreciate hearing the report, and I'm glad to hear of the community policing, the towns you've got focused on that. It's one of the things that I hear fairly regularly from the public is that they'd like to see more of the folks on foot or on bicycle out in the community. I'm hearing a lot of complaints, much more than I have in the past, from folks that are just seeing the prostitution, the drug dealing, drug use, just regular people seeing it a lot more than I've heard in the past, more so than I think I'm sensing from these statistics, and I'm hearing it from a range of people. I will be setting up a meeting with you to bring some of the residents, because I think they need to hear from you directly what you're doing with it. I often hear a connection made, and I've cautioned a little bit on it, but I suspect there's something to it, a connection made with the increased sober home activity. And I just had an email on it, I forget, did I send that this morning? I think so. Just another one recently, I've had several before, that people are just very concerned that sober homes seem to be popping up everywhere. There seems to be, in people's minds, a connection with increased crime. Whether that's accurate or not, I can't speak to, but the concern in the community is definitely getting to a pretty high level. I think what I'm seeing here gives a somewhat reassuring view. It does not match with what I'm hearing from residents.
Okay.
So that's something that just a heads up, you know, the perception on the ground.
I agree with you. Your first topic, as far as foot patrol and bike patrols, we've added 6 more bikes. We had a revamping of the program agency-wide.
Don't let them get stolen.
We will lock them up with a box. But we've added 6 to the complement we already have, and I definitely want to get them in the alleyways.
Yeah,
It's great
I think
for
that's good.
deterring burglaries, robberies, and everything else.
Yeah.
And with the sober homes, it's definitely worth investigating. I don't have any statistical data on hand. I can tell you there's a lot of new faces. We're seeing new faces
Yeah.
every day. Because you can see we're making a ton of arrests, but every day we're seeing new faces in the city that are coming from all over the place. So they're coming from somewhere. I can't statistically tell you it's sober homes, but I hear that as well.
Yeah.
So it's worth investigating.
And if I could do a little side follow-up, I would ask that we soon schedule on our agenda some sort of, I don't know whether we want to do a town hall meeting or an agenda item on an upcoming agenda, but I think we really need to talk as a community, be aware that there's still the awareness issue in the community that people feel that the city should be able to shut down sober homes, and I think we need to explain again that that's not possible. But we also clearly need to do something. I don't know what that is, I don't know what all the legal constraints are, they're significant, but I really feel we need to up this a bit, and I think probably my colleagues feel the same.
Yes, without a doubt. I think it's really hard. We talked a lot about sober homes, especially with the legislation that recently occurred out of Tallahassee. It's hard because when you talk with people, and I try to talk with people on all sides of the topic, you know, and a lot of the legitimate, I fear using that word, but or more established, how about that? More established sober homes that were looking forward to the new restrictions. They felt that it was important for them to have that credibility and they want people to know. The problem that I always saw, and this is just me personally, is that, you know, people in the medical field that work in these sober homes, they don't turn people out on the streets. If someone has a disease, an addiction disease of some kind, you don't turn them out on the streets. You find them another place to go, another program for them to get into. But that's not what's happening here, because we see the people being turned out of these sober homes and then they're homeless.
Yes.
And that's not what the medical profession is set up to do in these types of facilities, and those other bigger, I guess, or more established facilities. Say, we would never turn somebody like that out on the street. You would find them another program to get into, put them in somewhere else, do something. But that's because there is no way to legislate your way through the sober home issue, because for a variety of reasons. That's what's happening right here in the city. And it's such a big issue. I don't even know where to start, but I definitely would love an open conversation about it, because it's certainly not for trying to help on all sides.
I'll be there.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Captain. Just to pick up on your comments, Madam Mayor and Commissioner McVoy, you know, one of the things that would make us less attractive for sober homes would be if we could somehow get some greater traction on improving our neighborhoods and increasing the value of our properties. Because what makes Lake Worth so attractive, Lake Worth so attractive is the inexpensive property. And folks are coming into town like they have historically, and bought up inexpensive pieces of property for things like sober homes, nonprofits, and all the other things that, at the end of the day, when you try to, sometimes when you try to analyze the whole of it, you say, well, they're well-intentioned. There's some unintended consequences. So, to your point about folks being put on the street, I talked to the city manager about looking into the process of coming up with some sort of an ordinance that would prohibit sober homes from dispensing their patients onto the streets. If they flunk out of the program or are kicked out, they've got to find a place for them to go. Either take them back to where they came from, but they can't just discharge them onto the streets. Now, that's going to be a real tough thing to craft, if it can be crafted at all. But if you're going to advertise to the New England states about coming to Florida to do your rehab because it's such a beautiful place, you get all these people doing this on the internet, and you lure these folks down here with limited funds, and when their insurance runs out or if something happens, then you kick them out on the street. They become the responsibility of the local municipality. So you take the inexpensive property here in Lake Worth that may be being bought up for this practice, along with the marketing, and come to South Florida. These folks come down here, when their insurance expires, they're kicked into the street, and you and I and the rest of us are left to deal with the issue. On the issue of prostitution, it seems to me that if there was greater emphasis on going out to the Johns, if you dry up the market, the prostitutes won't be here. If there aren't folks out there willing to buy their services, they won't be here. So is there some way we can, I don't know, I'm sure you guys are very much aware of that, but how do you shift, how do you do that? I mean, if you make it really uncomfortable for folks to find themselves being arrested for soliciting prostitution, and they find out that it's really not the best. I mean, I've heard stories of some municipalities that actually publish photos of these folks to embarrass them. I mean, what do we need to do to kind of stem that tide of bad behavior?
We do several of those reverses a year. We've actually got one coming up. I can't say when, but we do them basically quarterly. We used to put them in the paper, the photos. That hasn't been done for a long time. The tough part is the regular Johns. There's rules and whatnot that they know. We catch the first-time offenders and basically the dumb ones. The people that are regularly picking up the prostitutes can tell. So we do it, and it does help, and we do that quarterly. Thank you for reminding me. And it's very effective. We typically get 20 to 30 each time we do it.
Sometimes we go 4 days.
And I do work with Gail Levine, who does the PIPE program, prostitution intervention and prevention through education. And we get all types. We get everyone from retirees to, we've gotten doctors and lawyers. So we get all types. We just got one last time, a doctor on his way to the hospital. So we get all kinds.
Well, thank you again, and thank you for the time you've spent with the city manager and myself discussing the bicycle issue, and I'm looking forward to a plan coming together. We can maybe bring an offer to the city for maybe some reduction in those bicycle thefts.
Thank you all. I'm regularly working with all of you in different groups and whatnot, and I work with the city manager daily. We speak often. Thank you.
Commissioner Mercer?
I too wanted to thank you, and, you know, I talked with you guys today about doing a town hall meeting, and city manager, maybe we want to look at, but, you know, we really need to take it one step further. We need to, you know, have those conversations with the code department and have code representative here, and then also reach out to Representative Frankel, Representative Hager, Clemens, everybody that is working in Tallahassee and Washington really needs to be here for the town hall meeting. And you know, I reached out to a lot of them and took them around Lake Worth. I said, come, Representative Berman came out, Kerner, and I said, let me show you what a sober home looks like in Lake Worth, what it does to, you know, the crimes on the street, what it does to the infrastructure, what it looks like. So, you know, if we're gonna do the town hall meeting, we really need to have everyone in the room.
Thank you. I didn't get it in, it was the last thing, but I want to thank the neighborhood associations. When I was the city of Lake Worth officer, I thought we did a great job fighting crime. Myself, for example, I knew every bad guy just about in the city, but what we're doing differently among a few other things with PBSO that really makes it stronger is now we know a lot of the good guys and girls. Those neighborhood associations have been very effective. I was at two of them last night, and that's what we need is the continued support. That's one of the biggest differences I see from the city to the sheriff's office, is these associations. I'm very thankful that we have those.
Just to follow.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about the COP and how you're working with Commissioner Maxwell to, you know, pump that up and bring new energy to that?
Yes, sure. We have our COP program. Again, as a city, it was pretty much relegated to Murray Hills and the Lake Osborne area. It was very small. Now it's larger. I believe we're in the 20s to 30s. They don't fall under me. They fall under Community Services, which is Captain Linscoot, but we work closely. Lake Worth has its own unit. Captain Linscoot came out and spoke at the NAPC meeting the month before I got there, and then I followed it up my first month. The presidents were committing to 2 or 3 from each association. If we could double or triple the size of the COP, it would be fantastic. We have the cars, the little Ford Focuses with the amber lights. They give you a cell phone and a radio, and the more eyes we have out there, the better. So if we could strengthen that program, it would be great. They're going to send representatives to each neighborhood meeting and try to boost the program.
Thank you.
Commissioner Meyer?
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate the statistics. I think that's the best way for us to see where we are, where we're going, and how we can improve. So I really appreciate the data. The last time that you and I spoke, we had talked about perception versus the actual numbers, and so I don't want to create rabble over a perception, but I don't hear it spoken about very much, and I do definitely hear a perception of more violent crime. We hear a lot about prostitution and robberies. I have to say, if I can take myself out of this role for a moment and be a resident, within a 2-week period in my neighborhood, I was actually witness to a drive-by shooting. A couple of weeks later, there was a dead body found in almost the same location, not a result of the first one. But people are asking these questions regularly, and I am hearing stories like this from various parts of the city. And whether it's perception or actuality, many people are feeling that way, and I'm wondering what does reality say, and are there new approaches to at least address the perception and get the correct message out there?
It's a little bit perception and reality. I don't like talking percentages because those can be so off. I like actual numbers. Crime, as I showed, is still significantly lower than it was pre-merger. It's crept up in a couple areas a little bit this year. Robbery is violent. We've had some purse snatches, but we've also had some where people were pistol whipped or shots were fired. There is some violent crime. We are doing things. That's another area that's significantly improved. As a city, we had 5 detectives from a theft to a homicide. That's who we had. If we have a homicide now where they bring out the command bus and as many detectives and crime scene techs as we need, A sex crime has their unit, robbery has their unit. So the investigations are much better. Like I said, we arrested 3 that just this week, one of which fled to Virginia. And we got them with the aid of the U.S. Marshals.
Yippee.
So we are investigating them much better than years past. And like I said, it's still significantly down from 2007 and previous. That meeting with the African American clergy from about a half a dozen local churches is very, I'm really excited about that. One of the problems we have is a lot of times we don't, there's 20 people around and nobody saw anything. And I understand that. There's a fear of retaliation, sometimes there's a distrust of us, but we want to bridge those gaps where somebody had to see it. And if you see it, it'll stop. Eventually it will stop if the bad guys know that people aren't going to, not see anything like that. That's a big gain. That's something I wanted to do for years and we just did it. So that's big. And just being out there on the street is a deterrent. I can't say we're perfect, but if we're better than the bordering city, the robbers and gang members and whatnot are going to go somewhere else. If not, we'll catch them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think too, I know that I talked with Captain Silva about that, and you and I talked about it too. It's actually seeing you guys on the streets. One thing to park a car there and there's nobody inside of it. They say there's a car that's parked there and then it's there every day, whatever. To actually see you guys on the streets is what people need to feel confident that you know. It's almost like when we talked about, communications here in the city. When the power goes out or something happens and you don't talk to anybody, even though you know that they know that the power is out and that they're working on it, but just by not acknowledging that call, people get frustrated. And I think it's the same thing with you guys in not seeing you. We know that you're out there doing things, but there are a lot of new faces out there. There are a lot of drug-related incidents that are at the root of a lot of these crimes. And then,
Absolutely. Another thing, we put out more deputies per square mile than any district in the sheriff's office. We have the same amount of deputies, as I said, as West Point and Lake Worth, which is 60 square miles. We both have the same amount of deputies. And in addition to that, we've been bringing in the warrants unit, the narcotics unit, the traffic unit, and a lot of other ancillary units, in addition to already having more deputies per square mile than any other district. So we're out there. I feel the same way where I live. I almost never see a law enforcement officer, but I know they're there. It's just, they're going call to call, and when they're not doing calls, they're being proactive. But I can promise you they're out there. We're well staffed.
okay. Thank you guys very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.